Hello and welcome, Badger families. We're so glad that you're here for our Badger Family Forum today. My name is Stephanie Benson Gonzalez, and I direct UW-Madison's Parent and Family Program. We're going to share a little bit more about our services and how we connect with families today, but I just want to share that our office serves as a central resource and a point of contact for you. We offer a variety of events and services, and this Badger Family Forum series is just one of them. So thank you, and we appreciate you being here today. Before we begin, I also want to thank our partners at the McBurney Disability Resource Center for providing live captioning for today's event. You can find the link for professional captioning below in the video description. So today we're going to do an overview of the many services that our office, the Parent and Family Program, offers for families, as well as additional ways that you can engage with the Badger community as parents and family members. I also want to just thank everyone who submitted questions in advance for today's session. Ask Us Anything really means ask us anything. And we received so many questions on a variety of topics. Some of your questions were really personalized. And so for those, we may not cover those in this time together today. We tried to choose questions that might be applicable to a larger group of folks. And so I just want to say that the invitation is always here for you to connect with our office. We answer thousands of questions every year, and we're here to answer your personal questions too. So that's all to say, we're going to try to get through as many questions and answers as possible. And if we don't answer your question today, please follow up with our office. We're here to be a resource. So before we begin, I want to take some time just to introduce our staff to you all. And, if you are contacting our office and asking a question, who is sort of the person who is answering that? So I want to start our time together by introducing two colleagues also from the Parent and Family Program. Monica, I'll turn it over to you to start.
Hi, all. My name is Monica Rupert. I use she, hers pronouns, and I serve as the events and outreach manager for the Parent and Family Program. So that means I help plan events like Family Weekend, Badger Family Spring Visit, which we'll talk about a little bit more about later. I actually graduated from UW myself. I worked as a campus tour guide. Fun fact, my first official role with Parent and Family Program was actually as a student DJ at one of the Parents Weekend, now Family Weekend tailgates. So you might see me spinning tunes if you head on over to Family Weekend this year, but we're excited to be here today with you and answer your questions.
Thanks, Monica. Monica, I can just attest, served as a fantastic DJ, and we still kind of utilize her talent in that area. We're also joined by our colleague, Jenny, who has a dual role with our office and also with Student Affairs Advancement. So Jenny, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. My name is Jenny Schonsberg. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the development specialist for parent and family engagement here at UW-Madison. Similar to Stephanie and Monica, I will be one of those folks that you'll interact with if you call us on the phone or email us, reach out on Facebook. In my role, I organize these Badger Family Forums, and I also lead our social media, web, and assessment initiatives. I was born and raised in Wisconsin, and I'm so happy to have settled back here with my family. We originally were in Washington, D.C. and Denver for a while, so I really find myself relating to all of you out-of-state families and folks that are joining us from all over the world. It can be so hard being far away from your loved ones, and I hope it helps you all to know that the three of us are here, and we can help you and support you. I will be popping out of the chat for a little bit. I'm going to be the one monitoring Facebook and answering questions over there and kind of producing the event behind the scenes, but I will come back at the end to help wrap things up with Stephanie and Monica.
Thanks, Jenny. So as Jenny mentioned, she's going to hop behind the scenes, and Monica and I are going to essentially walk through some of the topics that came up in the questions that you've submitted. And so Monica and I will kind of go back and forth answering your questions. We also recognize too that hearing answers to questions sometimes makes us think of new questions. And so again, feel free to put those in chat within Facebook if that's how you're joining us, or contact our program by email, follow up with us later on the phone. We want to be able to sort of answer some of those additional questions live and also after the event too. So before we get started walking through some of the different topics and themes that you all submitted in advance, I just want to share a little bit more about our office. Some families are really familiar with our office. Others may have interacted with us in a variety of ways, but aren't sort of sure who it was who sent them that newsletter or mailed them that calendar. And some families might be really familiar with what we do. So I won't spend a lot of time going through all of the details, but I just want to highlight that we essentially serve as a central resource to anyone who supports a student's success. There are a lot of ways that UW-Madison thinks about making a large university have smaller feel and community for students. And really, our office is the way that we do that for Badger families. We serve a little bit as generalists, and I think you'll see that in our forum today with our Ask Me Anything theme. We know a little bit about lots of different areas, but we also have great relationships throughout campus with the experts and the specialists in these areas. So, sometimes we'll be talking with a family and they're like, I have a housing question, but it's also connected to finances and it also relates to finding community. And so how do these things go together? Do I have to call 3 different places? And no, we really want you to know that our office is a central resource for you all. Our program is free and anyone can be a member. We do get a lot of family data, so we do have a good size of a database, but there's not a perfect way to get family data in the same way that there is student data, right? And so we just want to invite anyone who wants to be a member of our program, wants to receive communications, wants to learn about family events to join the Parent and Family Program. You can do so on our website, parent.wisc.edu. Again, it's free to join. Anyone can be a member, anyone from, parents, grandparents. Sometimes we have folks who are siblings or maybe a high school guidance counselor who's, really engaged with the student in their time here at UW. So we truly are a resource for everyone. There are 3 main ways that we stay connected to parents and families: communications, events, and then by answering questions. We answer thousands of questions every year. I'll just highlight a few examples of those different areas, and so that you'll know if you do join how you can expect to hear from us. For communications, we send the Badger Family e-newsletter 5 times per year. We also do email parents and families outside of those newsletter times. There might be a critical campus incident we want you to know about. There might be an event registration opening. There might be a topic like a Badger Family Forum, and we want you to have the link and save the date. But otherwise, you'll hear from us typically with those newsletters every other month. We also produce printed publications. If you came to orientation, you likely received our Badger Family Handbook, and we also mail a Badger Family calendar every year to your home. So if your address changes, please let us know, and we're happy to update that in our database. We have a comprehensive website that has a lot of really helpful and detailed information too. There's a parent news section. Our February newsletter recently went out. You can find all that information there. And there's also an overview of all the events that we offer throughout the year, which is another aspect of what we do. Our signature event is Family Weekend, and we just released the dates for Family Weekend 2023. If you missed that announcement, registration will open this summer. Our dates are October 20th through 22nd. And if you want to see what Family Weekend looked like last year to get a sense of schedule and opportunities, we do keep that schedule on our Family Weekend webpage on our website, so you can refer back and get a sense of what it might look like before registration opens this summer. Speaking of events, we also do a spring event, which is called Badger Family Spring Visit. Registration is open for Badger Family Spring Visit now. We feature a menu of free and low-cost events happening on campus and in the community. There's no fee to register, and we feature every weekend in April. So this can be a really nice opportunity for folks who are looking to visit their student, but maybe avoid some of the busyness that happens during large events like Family Weekend or football game days. So Badger Family Spring Visit can be a great time to visit campus. If you're from the Midwest, April is a little bit warmer. It's exciting, it's celebratory, and there's so many events happening throughout campus, whether, you want to go to a tennis match March, or the varsity band concert, or the farmers market. There's so many campus and community events happening during that time. And our goal is to make it easy for you to visit, to provide you event and parking information, to give you tips based on your interests, and then, of course, to give you a gift and answer any questions if you come in on Friday of those weekends. So please register for that also on our website. We also do a winter event. We do events that are virtual, like our Badger Family Forum series. And lastly, we answer thousands of questions every year through phone, email, and social media. And so again, I'll just say, if we don't answer your question today, we answer questions all the time, every single day. So please reach out. We also answer questions by phone and email in Spanish as well as English too. So that's just a little bit about our office and our program. Our contact information is displayed on the screen. Please don't hesitate to reach out. That's why we're here. In addition to Monica and myself and Jenny, who you've met today, we work with a team of experienced student interns who will also answer your questions by phone and email. And it can be a really nice way to get a student perspective. We've also shared a few of your questions with them in advance of this session, and we'll incorporate some of their insights into our answers, such as how do students find a roommate? So stay tuned for their perspectives throughout this time together too. So with that, I think we want to begin. I'm bringing Monica back in. Monica, we've been doing this a long time, haven't we?
We have. And the funny thing is, we both started, as I mentioned, we both started as tour guides, so kind of became campus generalists in that way first, and now get to answer those similar questions, but with parents, family members, anyone who loves a student.
Yes, I actually feel like right now, I feel like we're back. We're doing a partner tour as students, right? We're like back on the tour route. We're in a point and hold. Right? Yes, because when you are a tour guide and you're out there as a student, you really can get questions about all different kinds of topics. And I think we both really found how much we enjoyed that, and being able to sort of share our experience merged with information and be able to provide folks with answers and to make them feel connected and better about whatever they were wondering about. Yeah. And that's just so true for our work here. And I kind of feel like that's what we're doing today. Like, so many questions on so many topics, right?
100% full circle.
Yes, very full circle. So Monica, with Jenny's help, families submitted questions via a survey. And then we went and we grouped them into topics. And so we're going to essentially work our way through a variety of topics that cover lots of different issues. We're going to talk about academics. We're going to talk about safety. We're going to talk about housing. And so that's kind of how we're going to structure this session. And then again, if you're just joining us and you're on Facebook and you want to submit additional questions, Jenny's in the chat and can help answer those live questions here today too. So with that, let's get started. We're going to start with academics as our first topic. And I'm going to kick us off, and then I'll go to Monica. I'll go to you for the next question. So I'll begin. So we received a variety of questions related to academic decision-making. One parent wrote in and said, hey, my student's thinking about applying for pre-professional schools. What advice do you have on that topic? Someone else wrote in and asked about graduate schools in that process. We also received a few questions about, where do students start with academic questions? And then we got a handful of questions that were sort of personalized. My student had this course, this changed. What does that mean for them, right? So the invitation is reach out to our office if you want to talk more specifically about a particular student issue or course question that they have. But ultimately, I want to highlight that really all roads lead back to one answer for these questions, which is encourage your student to talk to an advisor and meet with an advisor. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like, how your student can do that, and what might be some next steps. So essentially, just to kind of back up, what is an advisor? And sometimes for families, they might have experience with what a high school guidance counselor is, which is a bit different than what an advisor is. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Advisors are professional staff or faculty who have been specifically trained to help students with their plans and goals, both during college and beyond. So for those of you asking about graduate school, that's in their area of expertise too. One way UW-Madison thinks about advising is that it's really a partnership between a student And not necessarily just one advisor, right? Really a network of advisors that a student may connect with during their time here. Um, Often parents will ask me, and I think this came up in our questions, when does a student see an advisor? And really, advising isn't limited to certain times of year or topics. I will say, let your students know advisors hear from a lot of students right before an enrollment time. So you might want your encourage your student to connect with them earlier or at different times of the year too, right? And not maybe the day before they're registering for classes. But really, there's not a limit on meeting with your advisor, how many advisors you connect with, or the topics that a student would talk about with their advisor as well. Sometimes too, I'll hear from parents and their student just has these general academic questions. Some of you, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, but asked about like how students connect to career services or get jobs and internships. What student organizations should they be involved in based on their area of interest? This is really where advisors come in. So if your student is looking for a general sounding board, someone to bounce ideas off of, a starting point, a person who can point them in different directions and triage, that's a really great way to utilize an advisor. Some students might say, I haven't really utilized my advisor. How do I know who that person is? So let your student know they can find their name and contact information for their assigned advisor in their student center. There's lots of different topics students can talk about with their advisor. It's not just course enrollment. It might be, they're struggling with something and wondering about resources on campus. It might be that they're thinking about studying abroad and wondering how that fits into their academic plan. It might be that they're thinking about a connection between major and career and they want someone to talk them through that. All of those things make sense for an advising conversation. And then lastly, and I'm going to turn it over to Monica, but I just want to mention too, when I talked about building a network of advisors, you might be like, well, other than my students assigned advisor in, the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, like who else would they be talking to? So I just want to note that sometimes too, students will have interest in a couple different areas, and they might seek out expertise from someone who's not their assigned advisor, but is maybe adjacent to a particular subject. But also too, sometimes students are exploring, the idea of career and major altogether and want to start with someone who is a little bit more of a generalist. And so I just want to highlight the Career Exploration Center as a resource, as well as the Cross-College Advising Service. I mentioned our website earlier. Our February newsletter actually has a really nice overview about the Career Exploration Center. So read about that on our website and learn more. I want to highlight, though, the Cross-College Advising Service. They provide academic advising and facilitate career development for students who are exploring major and careers. They have a main office, but also if your students in the residence halls, they do have 4 locations throughout the residence halls. Student can make an appointment, they can drop in. So if you want to learn more about that resource, send us an email after the session and we'd be glad to talk more about what that looks like. So that's sort of an overview of like broad advising support. Monica, I want to read a parent question and then I'm going to have you respond to this one.
Great.
One parent wrote in and said, my student is struggling to find help with one of their classes. They say they've done everything and no help yet. As a parent, who do we contact?
Such a great question, and one we hear all the time. First, I want to say I totally understand that the desire and the tendency to be like, okay, who do we contact as the parent or family members? How can I help them, right? You love your student and you want them to succeed. But I think first, kind of stepping back and realizing that this is a great coaching opportunity for them, both for you and for them. And I think starting off by clarifying with them, okay, what have you tried? Did you try tutoring services and the line was kind of, there was a line. Did you go to your professor's office hours and, you couldn't find their office? I remember when I was a student, there were truly things like, well, I went to this one tutoring session and, I had to wait like 15 minutes. So it wasn't great. But then, I tried another tutoring session in the middle of the semester and it was a lot less busy, or a different time of day and it was a lot less busy. So I think first, clarifying what it is that they've tried and what it is they have not, what it is that's worked, what it is that's not, and really helping them kind of working with them to problem solve and think about what's worked and what hasn't. And then also working with them to advocate for themselves, right? And asking for that help. There are so many academic support services on campus that students may have never even heard of. So while yes, you may have heard of, Greater University Tutoring Services, otherwise known as GUTS, there's also the math lab. There's tutoring services right in residence halls. There's both drop-in options and kind of regularly scheduled academic match tutoring sessions where it's one class and one small group that you meet with every week. There's even writing centers that help students with their resumes, that help students with a tricky paper, that help with stress management, time management skills. There's a design lab that can help students learn how to use basic programs like Excel and Microsoft. They have drop-in sessions and also like workshops that students can sign up for. So truly, there are so many resources. So I think you just clarifying with them what it is that they have tried and maybe what it is that they haven't. And then if they have tried some things, but maybe, reminding them that sometimes it takes a couple of tries to try something and get the results you want, and that there are lots of other resources. If they've tried one, there's another type of tutoring session they can drop into, or if they've chatted with your TA but they haven't gone into their professor's office hours yet, there is just kind of no shortage to resources. And so you helping them problem solve and then advocate for themselves and really do that asking for themselves is a great learning opportunity for them.
Absolutely, Monica. That's great advice. I really appreciate that. Something you said reminded me of a question that we got a little bit about that I'll highlight in a minute. But just to what you're talking about in terms of like office hours and making relationship, I think that is so helpful for a student. Also with exam preparation, sometimes families will reach out to us and say, how does my student prepare for an upcoming exam, right? Or, hey, my student's struggling with a course to this question, and like kind of where do they go now? And I think too, sometimes students are just intimidated to know that their professor is a resource in that area too, right? And there's advantages to that beyond doing well in a class. And doing well in a class is really important. But it kind of speaks back to our first question that we received from folks, which is about pre-professional schools or graduate schools. And really, like, relationships are just so important, not only to, a letter of recommendation or tips and advice, but for self-reflection and discovery. And something that we hear from faculty members a lot is like, I sit alone at office hours and I'm teaching
our day. Yeah.
Yes, right. I'm teaching undergrads for a reason. I want that connection. I want that relationship. And two, that's not true for every single professor. So to your point, Monica, if your student went once and it wasn't the interaction they were hoping for, they didn't make a connection. Same thing with advisors. Everyone has a different style. And I think something families can do is just help their student try again, try something new, go outside their comfort zone. We know one of the things that leads to happiness is when people are in an atmosphere of growth. And that's such a time for students to do that and be able to explore relationships with faculty. And that's going to help with courses and, when they're struggling, and also related to career track and sort of next steps really are those relationships.
Definitely.
It also helps too with exam preparation. And again, we didn't get a lot of questions about exam preparation. We did get a question about the academic calendar, so I'm going to tie into that. But I just want to note too that on our website, we have an article. If you search our website at parent.wis.edu, we do have an article called Study and Preparation Tips for a Successful Finals Week. And so if you want to know more about that, or you want me to email you the article, we may reference some articles or resources that we have on our website during this time together. Send us an email and we can email you links and send you some resources and articles. The other thing I was going to mention too, on our website, we have a tab at the top called resources, and it leads to a drop down that talks about academics and transportation and safety and career. So if you're like, oh, Monica mentioned this resource, Stephanie mentioned this resource, where do I find a link? Reach out to us, or know too that the way we're organizing the forum today is also organized similarly on our website. I did want to answer, though, a question about the academic calendar that comes up from time to time. One person wrote in and said that their student has an exam and it's close to the Christmas holiday. Why is this? Why do exams go late? How does the academic calendar work? There were a few questions about that. Feel free to follow up with us if you want to know more, but I can just share essentially a point of general information that folks may not know. But the academic calendar is constrained mostly by the Wisconsin State Legislature, which mandates that UW-Madison cannot begin instruction before September 2nd. So that sometimes is the reason that certain dates fall into place, is because UW is not able to begin fall instruction prior to September 2nd. In addition to the state of Wisconsin legislation, the creation of that academic calendar is also subject to various rules and guidelines. That could be from the Board of Regents, the Faculty Senate, others, like how many days of instruction, things like that. So if you're ever wondering about the academic calendar, I just want to address that because we received a few questions. That's a little bit of context, but I know that's complicated to all of the different things that falls under. So I wanted to note that question as well. So I think we're going to move to our next topic from academics and talk a little bit about career services, jobs, career preparation. And there's two family questions that I'm going to kind of read and then reference for our first question. And then Monica, after that, I'm going to go back to you and talk a little bit about student jobs. But first, I want to start talking about jobs and career related to this larger category of sort of post-UW and career exploration. One family asked, how does UW help students with getting internships and full-time employment after graduation? What advice can you offer parents of students who are job searching? And another wrote, my student attended a career fair. It felt overwhelming. How else can they connect? And so, yes, I appreciate that question too about there are these large events that have, a lot of information that could be a student organization fair, a career fair. And for some students, that's really helpful and they feel like they're able to browse and see a lot of different options. And so that can be a great way to connect. For others, that might feel overwhelming, as in the case of the person who wrote in with that question. Or it might be that was a helpful starting point, but you're looking for more personal or individualized service. So I want to talk a little bit about careers. One thing I'm going to note about careers is I'm going to refer back to that article. We just did a recent article related to the Career Exploration Center. So that might be something helpful if you want to know more to read about that resource in particular. I'm going to share a little bit about career service support broadly. One is that students can start looking for a career advisor at careers.wisc.edu. And this will connect them to their academic school or college's career services and advisors. Again, for students who are undecided about their major, maybe they're exploring career interests, the Career Exploration Center also offers individual advising appointments. They do workshops. They have resources. So those are sort of two primary ways to plug into career services, either by school or college, or going for a resource that's more of a generalist resource like a Career Exploration Center. Families do often ask me when is the time my student needs to be thinking about this? And the answer is they could think about it at any time. I want to be careful with that answer. It doesn't mean your student's behind if they haven't seen a career advisor, but really there are first-year students that start to engage in this conversation. And I think as a family member, when you're talking with your student about that, being mindful that that's not coming from a place of you have to figure out your career track right now. And your student's I'm just trying to think about my major, right? So less in terms of this idea of pressure and deadline and decision, but more so in the vein of curiosity and alignment, right? Both with personal values and also with a potential major track. One thing you'll see if you read the article I'm referencing about career services is that being undecided is really sort of a normal part of exploration, and that career doesn't equal major, right? And so really helping your students think about the skill sets that they're building. I know I was just reading a recent survey that I think one of our career services area did here, asked employers the number one quality they're looking for in students, and it's creativity too, right? And so just kind of thinking about that and skill building, and again, this difference between major and career, but also this alignment in those conversations too. So there are robust career services who are here to support your student. It's not required, but it's highly recommended that your student take advantage of those resources. Your student does not need to have picked a major in order to talk to someone from career services. They're really here to help students clarify or reinforce their understanding of, who they are and how their skills intersect with the major and career fields. Career advisors can help students also find an internship, which relates to that first question I mentioned. Internships essentially can help students position themselves for potential full-time job offers after graduation and really provide experience and the opportunity to learn more about a field of interest. Career advisors can help connect students to these internship opportunities, and career advisors provide guidance by sharing resources and information about application and the interviewing process too. I just want to plug two resources before I turn it over to Monica. One great way for students to find jobs, internships, is to connect with their campus career center, but to also go through UW-Madison's Handshake account. The Handshake app is available on their My UW dashboard, and students can add that app in that way. It helps students find part-time jobs and internships, and it's sort of a way to organize those opportunities for UW-Madison students. So that's Handshake. And the second resource I want to talk about is Badger Bridge. It's a professional network that's supported by our Alumni Association, and it connects students to recent graduates and established alumni networks, and it can help with professional advice and support and opportunities. So those are two great areas to kind of point your student in addition to sort of the career services that we talked about earlier. So Monica, I want to turn it over to you. I was just talking about careers in terms of sort of future career. Could you talk more about student job opportunities? And I'll read one question that we received. It said, where can students find information about campus jobs and how do they go about applying for one?
Great question. Yeah, and Steph, I love how you talked about kind of the alignment sometimes between major and career, and how helpful career advisors and career counseling centers can be for students. I think another way that students can find what they're looking for and maybe a potential job is even just those part-time semester jobs. And so, one student asks, I think you mentioned this stuff, where can students find that information about campus jobs and how can they apply for it? And so through the student job portal makes it super easy for students to search for and apply for jobs. So again, that's right in the bottom here, studentjobs.wisc.edu. Everything's a .wisc.edu. It makes it super easy to filter by on-campus or off-campus, by your major or even desired career category. So I'm looking at going into higher ed, criminal, criminal and law, and whatever it is that they're looking for, they can really kind of filter by that, even if they want remote or hybrid opportunities. And then so many of those job types are really flexible with student schedules too. So everything from working at a housing dining hall or union coffee shop to maybe more office-based jobs. So for example, we in the parent and family program, as Stephanie mentioned, work with experienced student interns, anywhere from like a team of 2 to 4, who help us with answering questions from you all, with events, with publications. And so we're even hiring right now for student interns. So there's a lot of different jobs that students can do on campus, and they can find those and apply for those all right through that student job portal. It's even updated daily, and so students can continue to check each semester or kind of time of year that they're looking. So if they're staying in Madison over the summer and to take a class or two and they want a job while they're here, they might apply to be an orientation leader for our SOAR program, or they're able to kind of really specify what they're looking for and learn what it is they like and don't like. I think that can be just as valuable in their search for what they want to go into, and even their search for their major, as seeing those advisors. So definitely check out the advisors, and also get some real life experience and allow yourself to kind of find out that way too. And that actually makes me think of that students kind of one more flexible opportunity, or one more benefit of working on campus and working a student job, is that students can even work where they live. So they can work in university housing at front hall desks or in dining halls, and so that there's just a lot of flexibility and kind of synergy with a student's schedule. Speaking of housing, we got a lot of questions related to housing, and we want to move into a few of those, some on campus, some off campus. Steph, I might bring it back to you for some off campus questions later.
Yeah.
But our first housing related question is, how do I get an accurate real life dorm packing list? What does my student really need and not need? Great question. We hear this every year. I think what's nice is that university housing has pages for each of the individual residence halls with measurements of everything from like, here's how big the closet, here's how big each shelf within the closet is. And, here's how big here's how tall the lofted beds are. So you can kind of do some searching that way. They have virtual tours of different room types. So if you go to housing.wisc.edu and you click on kind of you click through the residence halls pages, when your student receives their housing assignment, if they're living on campus, which is usually, I would say, about midsummer, they can do virtual tours. They can really take a look at what their room is going to look like and kind of get a better idea of maybe what they need from that. They'll also see on that website, they'll see that University Housing has a what would Bucky bring list. And Jenny might post that in the Facebook comments right now. But Bucky, like, what would he take if that's things like, does Bucky need his, combination lock for a desk drawer, right? Because there is like a locked drawer that students can put things in, or right, what kind of clothing items does he need, what kind of class and study items, and then it'll also list what items are not allowed. So that what Bucky would bring to campus list is really helpful. And then on our website, parent.wisc.edu, we also have a kind of what to bring and what not to bring list that I think can help you kind of parse down. I think one tip we've heard from families is, to some extent, bring maybe less than you think you'll need, because you and your student, when you move in, can always add more, but it's hard. They're not massive rooms. They're still a really good size, but I think you can always add more. And so sometimes it's nice to go in, see based on those lists, pack a little bit less than what you think, and then students can always kind of, if they really are in need for something when they're here, they can get that. Related to what to bring and how to set up your room is how to, establish a good communication style with the person you're going to be living with that roommate, right? And so I'll talk about this kind of like roommate relationships and finding roommates, both in the context of on campus and off campus. So first, just finding roommates. For first year students, they can, if they're living in university housing, random roommates is still a thing. I did a random roommate search when I was a first year student and had an absolute blast with it. We didn't end up being, lifelong friends, but we had a really wonderful first year together. And it was a great exercise in sharing a room and communicating, cleaning and chores, and who was going to do each. And that became really helpful for kind of future apartments I lived at with other roommates. So you can still do random through university housing. You can also find roommates through kind of your class of Facebook group. So we asked our students this, and they said, right through that kind of class of 2027 Facebook group that they'll usually get either invited to or can join. They have been able to find kind of first year roommates that way. And that's another option for that first year. Students in their second, third, fourth year can also use a more general Facebook sublet roommate board, and they can search for those specific to UW-Madison. Some apartments even have their own roommate matching service. So, it's worth taking a look into different apartment complexes and asking if they offer that, because a number of them do. They'll have folks who kind of, fill out a questionnaire, fill out a personality assessment, and they'll match them to a roommate that they think has similar living styles or is just looking for another roommate. And one final note on this is, do watch out kind of for scams. Everything, all of the services that I mentioned are online. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So always, exercise a bit of caution. I think this is a great place where parents and families can come in is double checking who they're chatting with, and does this sound like it's going to be a good fit, and kind of just reminding them to never send or accept any payment from anyone without vetting them first. So that can be always something you do together as parents and family members and students. Steph, can I toss it back to you for kind of some general advice going off of that off-campus piece, and kind of how students are finding off-campus housing opportunities?
Yes, I'm glad you said that, Monica, because we received, well, I'm also glad you talked about safety because we did receive a lot of questions from people about the Madison housing market right now. And it's a more competitive market than it used to be. I think even just a few years ago, we were saying to families, really have your student wait. And there's sort of a myth about housing and a rush. And so have them think about a decision. And the market is just changing. And a lot of your questions reflected that. And so I just wanted to note that I don't have maybe an easy answer to all of that. And that's sort of a trend that's happening and it's affecting campus and also the downtown community more broadly. But I want to assure you that there are folks on campus who are very aware of this and talking about this question and working on partnerships across the city of Madison. So I want to acknowledge those questions and also build on what Monica said in terms of a response. So we have an office called UW-Madison's Campus Area Housing Office. And so I want to highlight, I shared these questions with them, and I want to highlight a few things that they shared with me, as well as an event opportunity where they'll probably be able to get a little bit more into some of details about housing. So I'm going to share that Campus Area Housing will be hosting a virtual housing fair this month on March 28th. And you can find that information and link off of their website, which is campusareahousing.wisc.edu. And this event will highlight fall properties that have vacancies for fall 2023. So I just want to highlight that as sort of a resource that speaks to a lot of the questions that you submitted about fall 2023 housing options. And then I also want to share some information that their office shared with me regarding the housing search in general. Their website, though, is a fantastic website. They have a roommate matching feature that I think is relatively new. Primarily, their website serves as a listing service. So essentially, off-campus properties can advertise with them. It's certainly not comprehensive of every off-campus property because folks, need to choose to list with them. But I do think it can be a good starting point for students who are looking for housing options. As I mentioned, they also have a roommate finding tool. Something that's nice to know about this, and it sort of talks about what Monica was referring to about just safety and scams and awareness when students are looking for information online. The roommate finding feature, you have to log in with a net ID. And so that's just something to know about that service that they provide too, which can be a great resource. They also have parking information. We didn't get a question about this for today's chat, but we often get a question about parking options for students, which sometimes are a little bit trickier on an isthmus. We love our lakes, but a little bit of less land to work with there. So they also have a parking list, and it shows folks who may have a parking spot to rent out in the Madison area. And they also have rental resource information on their website. They have a rental resource guide that's really helpful and kind of talks about the landscape of housing and myths and things to consider. Even things like, if you're touring an apartment, and it's downstairs, check your cell phone. Do you have good service there, right? So they have some helpful tips and are really sort of an expert in this area. General information they shared with us was to encourage students to make their housing decisions when they have a sense of their plans for next year, and that may look different for every student depending on their priorities for location, size, the type of unit, the desired price points. The key thing they wanted us to highlight is that a lease is a contract and it comes with legal obligations. And so that might be new for some students in thinking about this. So this idea of citing multiple leases, we don't want to do that. This is a legal contract. That's a really, I think, important conversation for families to have with students, right? Of course, we want to make sure that students are informed going into the leasing process. And so I'll also highlight the Tenant Resource Center as a resource too. Sometimes we'll refer to the Tenant Resource Center when maybe there's a conflict a student is having and they sort of need a third party to talk about rental resource rights. That's a great Madison resource to point your student to as well. Students currently searching for fall housing may find success searching in neighborhoods just outside the central campus area or by searching for sublets. So that's another tip they gave us to share as well. Short commute options to campus could include walking, biking, busing, I do want to add that UW-Madison students receive a City of Madison Metro Transit bus pass, and that is included in their segregated fees that they're already paying as part of tuition. Um, they also, Campus Area Housing shared with us a variety of tips related to scams. I won't go in those in depth, but if you want to see their sort of full list of things to consider, please email us and we can send this to you. And then I think this will be a nice segue into answering some safety questions that you all submitted as well. They talk with us broadly about, as Monica said, students should be cautious about housing scams. And then here's some preventative tips that they've shared with us that are developed in conjunction with the Madison Police Department. One tip is to make contact in person if possible. This will allow a student to see the apartment and review the lease with the property manager. So this gets to Monica's point about like an online scam versus, meeting someone here who has a property to show. Another tip is to be mindful of the area code. If the phone number isn't a 608 area code, it's likely not a property manager within the city of Madison. Next, attempt to only make contact with property managers and individuals who are authorized to lease apartments by using online reviews or looking at a company website to do that verification. Remember to be mindful of the price the apartment is listed for and compare it to a market value. Also, you can report types of incidents related to housing directly to the Federal Trade Commission. So that's just something to know too. They also shared with us that folks who may be scamming will often target online social apps and websites. They may even spend time building rapport with a potential victim. They often will create a sense of urgency to get their victims to pay large sums of money. And so that kind of goes back to Monica's point too about being cautious about any money exchange or things like that. And then lastly, I just want to add a point. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but if you're just joining us, Campus Area Housing will be hosting a virtual housing fair on March 28th. Again, that'll be available on campusareahousing.wis.edu, and they'll be highlighting fall properties that have vacancies for fall 2023. So mark your calendars for that event or encourage your student to attend that as well. One thing too, Monica, we had talked about potentially talking a little bit about roommate conflict. We didn't get as many questions on this, so maybe if you want to highlight that briefly, and then we'll end with safety and then final tips for families.
Sounds great. Yeah. Just kind of a brief note about roommate relationships, as I alluded to earlier, right? For some students, they're maybe used to sharing a room. Others, it might be brand new to them. And so, reminding them, walking them through, good communication strategies, and that no matter what happens, they're learning and building resilience from all of those interactions with their roommates, I think will be really helpful. To help get the conversation going, house fellows will have students, house fellows in university housing will encourage students to fill out a roommate agreement, and it asks things like bedtimes, noise preferences, guests in the room, cleanliness, all kind of so students can get that conversation going about what they each expect of each other. If there's any issues, students can always go to that house fellow or someone like a dean of students office if students are living in off-campus housing, for kind of an unbiased third party as additional support. So we'll talk more about getting involved a little bit later, but I'll pass it back to Stephanie for a note to talk about safety.
Yeah, Monica, I will say too, related to getting involved, one thing that surprised us is we didn't get as many questions for this forum on getting involved in finding community. And we were wondering why that is, and then realized our last Badger Family Forum talked about kind of getting involved in finding community. And we had some experts there, both from the Center for Leadership and Involvement and also from Recreation and Wellbeing, that were talking about involvement opportunities. So if you're watching this and would like to know more about that, visit our website and you can find our webpage about Badger Family Forums. And you'll be able to view this recording or past recordings. So if you can't join us live for one of these events, or you want to reference a past topic, those are all there and available to you. So that can be a great way to kind of dive into that topic if you'd like to at a later time as well.
Definitely.
I think we'll conclude with safety, and then we'll talk a little bit about some final advice. We'll bring Jenny back to share more information about her perspective in working with families. But I wanted to acknowledge that we received a variety of questions about campus safety and what that looks like. And I mean, certainly we're living in a time where we're thinking about things like active shooters and trainings and procedures and emergency alerts and things like that. So I wanted to share information that we put in our most recent newsletter from UW-PD. And then I also want to talk a little bit about the different types of crime communications that they send out, because there's sort of three main categories that falls into. And then if you want to know more about that, please feel free to email us after too. But I do want to share some important information with them on this topic that I think speaks to a variety of questions that we received. One is that UW-PD has a lot of great information on their website that talks more about this. So if you're like, how do I get that link for that active trainer shooter training? Or how do I learn more about those safety tips? We can email that to you, or no, there's a lot of information there as well that I'm going to reference in some of these answers too. Their website is uwpd.wis.edu, and they have a staying safe page that's really helpful in terms of sort of overviewing these resources broadly, and again, provides those links as well. There's sort of two main pieces of information in that area when you first go to the page. One is active threat response training, and then the second is help for victims and witnesses. And I do want to share a little bit about that active response training. UW-PD, which is our campus police department, they train regularly for responding to active threat situations. And they also provide active threat response training. And some of your questions asked about that. You can, again, learn more about active threat response training on their website. Our campus community can get trained in person or online. And so that could be a helpful resource to share with your student or read more about on their page. As I mentioned, there's also a variety of types of alerts that UW-Madison might send. One that you may be familiar with is called a WISC alert. WISC alerts are UW-Madison's emergency notification system. And so this system is designed to provide information about an active emergency situation on campus. And it would be an emergency that would require our community to take immediate action in order to stay safe. And so these could be updates like, this is happening right now, shelter in place, or there's a water leak right here, avoid this street, right? So this is sort of not comprehensive information, updates on past incidents, or resource sharing. It's really information that's designed to keep our community safe when there is sort of an active event that our community needs to be aware of. One thing I want to add about WISC alerts is that every campus email address will automatically receive WISC alerts when they're issued. WISC alerts are also sent through text message. And again, your students are automatically enrolled to receive those text alerts. It's new now that your student can actually add a secondary phone number to receive text alerts. So I just wanted to note that too. Sometimes students choose to add a parent or family member to receive a WISC alert as well. So that could be an option for your student or for your family. There also are a couple different types of alerts that I'll briefly mention. One is a crime warning. A crime warning is a campus-wide email notification for certain crimes that have occurred within sort of a clearly defined geographical area, and they're considered ongoing. So I wanted to note that as a crime warning. A potential continued safety concern would exist in this case because suspects have either not been identified or apprehended. So that's what a crime warning looks like. We also talked about a WISC alert. I wanted to mention too, those are often also communicated by the university through social media. And then lastly, there is something called an off-campus alert. This was started as a pilot program by UW-PD in October of 2018 to supplement our WISC alert system. So these email notifications essentially inform our community about significant threats that might be happening in certain areas that are outside of the UW-Madison campus, but where a large number of our students either live or frequently visit. Unlike whisk alerts, these alerts are opt-in only, and students can choose to receive off-campus alerts within their whisk alert profile. So again, if you want to talk, that's sort of a broad overview. If you have other questions or want to talk further, that's why we're here. We're happy to help, provide links, answer questions. That's a great way to contact us too. And also to say, safety is a big topic. We could talk about SafeWalk, which is a resource students can use if they are walking home late at night and don't want to walk home alone, right? SafeWalk is a resource that they can contact. We could talk about safety in the context of high-risk drinking, sexual assaults, petty theft, locking up items, when students are away. For example, in our recent newsletter, we have tips if your student's traveling for spring break, things to keep in mind about securing their residence. So I just want to acknowledge safety is a big topic. It contains a lot of information. We talked more just now about emergency alerts and active threat training because that's what your questions asked about. But if you're wondering more about additional safety topics, please reach out to us too. One thing my colleague Jenny, who will join us in a minute, is reminding me is that we also did a Badger Family Forum on campus safety last fall, so that could be helpful to reference as well. And if you'd like the link for that, you can find that on our website or email us, and we're happy to send that to you as well. So thank you so much. Again, you can watch this video anytime, or again, these past Badger Family Forums on our website, and the links displaying here on our screen as well. We have about 5 minutes left in our time together. It goes so fast when we're trying to connect on a lot of different topics. And so now I just want to take an opportunity to invite Jenny back. Jenny, thanks so much. I know there were a lot of comments on Facebook, so thanks for answering those and connecting with folks there. But I want to end by just sharing a piece of advice that we all might have for families based on our work with students. And so Jenny, I'll start with you, and then Monica, I'll go to you next.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And yes, y'all have been very lively over in that Facebook chat. So thank you for keeping me busy this hour. It was so great to hear so many great questions and be able to relay resources. My piece of advice that I want to relay, and we've kind of touched on it throughout the chat, but just that it's okay for your students to struggle, and it's okay for them to fail on occasion. It's going to build that resiliency that's going to help them out so much during the remainder of their time here and then beyond when they leave UW. So I know I have kids of my own that I want to jump in and kind of rescue and save, and I want to keep them from harm. But knowing that we really need to give these students and these Badgers some space to learn and grow, and that it's okay for them to stumble every once in a while. And you just need to be there to help them kind of sort through and learn on the back end. But it's okay. They will figure it out. There will be things where they will falter, and they're all going to be okay. And we're here to help you.
Yes, absolutely. Monica, would you like to share a piece of advice?
Definitely. Jenny, that was beautiful. And kind of going off of that students will struggle. Idea is that I think, this is a really large school and there are so many resources and opportunities, but there are people who are here to help. So whether that's you as a parent and family member or any of the resources we've mentioned today, I know we've mentioned a lot of links, a lot of websites, a lot of offices. You can always contact us for those again. But just that there are people here to help. I think my biggest piece of advice is that it can kind of be scary to ask for help or to have asked for help. And maybe, Stephanie, as you mentioned earlier, to maybe not get the exact answer you thought you were going to get. And so try again, try with a different advisor or a different office. If you're looking to get involved, if you tried with one club, but it didn't work out, don't be afraid to try others. There are resources, there are opportunities, there are many of them, but I think just reminding them of the persistence, that persistence piece, and kind of advocating for themselves and just not being afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely. Thank you both. I echo all of that. And we'll maybe just share too, for families to know is that we have a shared goal and we're on the same team. We're on your team, we're on your students' team. And our shared goal is your students' success. And so know too that that's why we consider ourselves partners and we consider parents and families as partners of the university. And we really do have that shared goal. We want students to be happy and successful and challenged and really be able to do reflection on who they are and who they want to become. And we know you've been part of that whole journey and that doesn't end, right? Really their whole lives, I feel like who among us doesn't still kind of seek out guidance from folks who supported us, whether that's family or other folks through the years. And so, we have that shared goal and that's why our office exists. That's why UW-Madison created an office to be able to answer your questions, host events for you to come to campus, and to provide you with communications to help you know more about the resources that you can direct your students back to, whether things are going really well or things are a little bit tricky. Many people on campus, our whole job is really to help your students and develop them and support their success and get them to the right resource. So how wonderful is it that we can connect through this shared goal, which really is your students' well-being and their happiness and growth. And so we take that role very seriously. And we also find a lot of joy in that work. And so too, sometimes families reach out and they're like, I'm so sorry or bothering you or I know you have things going on. And really, we find joy in the connection with you all. We find joy in watching your students develop and we find joy in the relationship we have with you all too. So thank you for all that you do and really for joining us today too. We value you. I want to close ever so quickly. Now I know we're at time by just reminding you again, on that note, Parent and Family Program is a central resource. We hope today was a helpful overview on a lot of different topics. We also recognize that you might have follow-up questions, and certainly there's so many topics that we're not able to cover in an hour or two. So the invitation is to connect with us and reach out and know that we're happy to provide additional information. Our contact information is up on the screen, and you can also visit our website to learn more about most of the topics we discussed today and find our contact information, and that's parent.wis.edu. Also on our website, you can find our page to our Badger Family Forums and reference this video or others. You can find event information and register now for Badger Family Spring Visit, which happens every weekend in April, a menu of free and low-cost events and no fee to register. We just want you to feel invited and informed while you're here on campus. And you can also save the date for Family Weekend. Family Weekend this year will occur October 20th to 22nd. We'll have a lot of programming and opportunities to connect. It's a really fun signature event where we welcome thousands of parents, family members, and students to campus on that weekend. And again, if you're looking for an opportunity that's a little bit more low-key, that's why Badger Family Spring Visit is a great option for this April. So thank you again on behalf of Monica and Jenny and our student interns. We just want to say thanks for being with us, and we look forward to connecting with you this month and throughout the rest of the year. Take care.